Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is John Bishop from John Bishop Fine Art, and you're listening to Conversations for Freelance Creatives. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad you're here. Listen, I know it's been a while since we spoke, and that is totally my fault. I could come up with some long, kind of strange explanation or excuse, but really it has to do with being super busy. We actually made some changes. Now, you guys may realize that I do this podcast. I also do this into a video podcast as well. And then I do a weekly vlog and a weekly blog. And then, of course, I help run my small art business with Bogdan. So there's a lot going on. Bogdan was a television producer back in Romania. And he spent a good portion of his professional career behind the camera. And that's what he's good at. He's good at filming, he's good at setting things up, he's good at direction, he's good at editing, but he hates to be in front of the camera. Part of that is probably because he's worried about his English, which is fine. But another part is just that has been where he's spent his time, always behind the camera. So I do understand that. But we are in a video production company and we run art businesses. And a big portion of being an artist is letting people know who you are. People connecting with you as the artist and somebody that they can have some sort of relationship with, some sort of chemistry with. And that doesn't happen if they can't meet you. Now, I could invite everyone over to the studio and they could get to know me there. That would be lovely. That would take a long time and I couldn't reach nearly as many people. So we know, and every study shows, that if you're going to do any outreach on social media and just any kind of marketing this day and age, you must be on video. So I finally, in January, I started up all of these social media outlets and have been running them for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then slowly Bogdan, because he's such a perfectionist, when he sees these things being produced and realizes that I'm doing the filming, I'm doing the editing, I'm doing the lighting, I'm doing it all, he could do it so much better. So he started inserting himself, which is kind of my evil plan all along, to get him to say, you know what, this is a valuable thing for us to do, and he really needs to be part of it. He needs to be in front of the camera. So what I was able to finally do about a month and a half ago is get Bogdan in front of the camera. So we completely redid the way we're presenting the vlog. And that includes both me and Bogdan in a much more interactive, much more movement. We're moving around, we're doing things, we're going places, and we're sharing that with the vlog. So it completely changed the format. However, that's all well and good, and you would think with an extra person helping, particularly somebody who's an expert, that would make the job twice as easy. I don't know how many of you work with your spouse or work with kind of perfectionists. That just doesn't happen. It got a lot more difficult, not because it's difficult to create or that we're fighting or anything like that, but it's just that there's now a process, there's now a committee almost. I don't just make the decisions, I don't just go and write it and then present it off a teleprompter or whatever. I have to negotiate all of these things, which makes the show better, I'm sure, but it takes a lot longer, and that's what was eating up my time. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is I had come up with this scheme that what I would do is I would write the blog, and the blog would be my way of getting out all my thoughts and organizing my thoughts on a given subject. And then I would turn that into a vlog and into a podcast. That original piece of writing was kind of forming the other two. What I realized pretty early is I love writing. And when I write, I hope, kind of a tight, hopefully well-written piece of work that is largely about language and the way I'm writing. That doesn't always translate to video that well. So yeah, I can read something off a teleprompter, go back and look at the earlier episodes, and you'll see that it's quite, I don't want to say it's scripted, but it almost sounds stuffy. It almost sounds academic. And while I really enjoy that, I have a great affinity for academia, I'm not sure it was the most entertaining. So what we've done was, when I started doing this with Bogdan, that blew all of my process out of the water. I no longer had a format with which to approach first the bit of writing, then the vlog and the podcast. So I'm creating a new system. And that's probably good. Right now, I'm still struggling with the idea of how to make a podcast more interactive. I suppose the best way to do that is for me to start interviewing people and having more input come in. And I'm happy to do that. It's just that I have to, again, when you get other people involved, it kind of throws a wrench in the works. It takes longer. People can change their schedules and mess you up, things like that. So we'll see how I can now turn my attention back to the podcast and how to make it more engaging and entertaining, as well as informative for those of you who are listening or viewing if you're doing the video version of this. So that's where we are, and that's my sad excuse. But hopefully what we're seeing is a progression and a bettering of the productions that we're putting forward. I tell you, we've been looking a lot at our business, kind of as we always do, but in particular, we've been looking at the fact that things are getting bad again with COVID. And though we could never, ever have imagined all of the pain and chaos and death and, strangely enough, the politics of a pandemic. I don't want to get into that now, but I do want to say that we were able to somehow make it through all of the closures and all of the stay-at-home orders and just the people who were reticent to go out because there was no vaccine. We're now looking at a new wave. I think this is the fourth wave of the COVID pandemic, specifically with the new variant, the Delta variant. And we're looking at what's going on, and we're looking at the number of cases, and we're looking at the kind of panic in the medical profession that the hospitals are filling up again, and that even the vaccinated folks need to be wearing masks when they're with others. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is this going to happen again? Maybe it won't be as bad as before. Hopefully they won't have the kind of fatalities as before. But if people get frightened enough that they don't want to go out, our sales depend on people coming through the door. What we have noticed is as people were getting vaccinated, as the summer progressed and those numbers were dropping before this new variant, people were back at the studios. Our sales were going up. My God, we had the best month we've ever had, I believe, in July, in the, 7 years that we've been in business. So yeah, it was a magnificent month. I had my big exhibition where the Pancamarga exhibition finally happened, and we had that reception, and that was open for a month. I sold 11 of the 20 pieces. It was just a great, great month. And then wow, I'm not sure, next week is our second Saturday when all the studios are open, I'm not sure we're going to have many people show up. I'm just not sure. And we started talking about, okay, if this were to happen again, can we survive it? And how can we survive it? I mean, we barely made it before. Of course, we had no way of knowing what was coming or how long it was going to last. But the only thing that got us through is that we were able to get one of those emergency disaster loans from the Small Business Association. And that is a loan you have to pay back. But it was an infusion of cash when we absolutely had to have it because sales stopped. And the doors were locked for 2 or 3 months. And then, of course, after that, people still didn't come back because it just wasn't safe to do so. So yeah, we've been through a lot. We're really, really kind of looking at what is it about our business that we need to change so that we are not so vulnerable to bad weather or disease or any other thing that could keep people from coming through our front doors. And even at coming through our front doors, we're not raking in the dough. I mean, we're selling to people who come in, and we're doing a lot of marketing on the face of going into social media outlets, and we've been doing lots of video. We've been really, really posting a lot, and it's showing up. That's great. Our followers are growing. We actually have kind of a small following of collectors now who are actual collectors who do that, and it's very, very rewarding to see that this stuff starts to pay off. But we're not making the kind of money. It's not like we're running a shop that's supporting us. It's just not. So we're now looking at, okay, what do we need to change in the business so that we don't have to live on the edge all the time? And that's a conversation Bogdan and I have been having. One of the things we're looking at is during COVID, an odd thing, I consider it odd, an odd thing happened. The people who stayed at home, started working from home, started homeschooling their children, going to meetings virtually through Zoom and things like that, those folks generally didn't suffer that much. They didn't lose a lot of money because they still had a paycheck coming in. They didn't have much to spend their money on. And so where they would have traveled or they would have gone out to eat a lot and done all these other things, they actually started to buy more online. They started to try and beautify their homes because they were spending so much more time there. And as they outfitted their new or home offices and living rooms and living spaces, they not only started to buy more art, they started to buy better art, more kind of fine art. That was not something I expected. And that trend has continued. In fact, all the studies show, I mean, when COVID first hit, they were saying, by the end of the year, most galleries will be closed. I don't know a single gallery that's had to close. I mean, things have been remarkable. People have turned to the arts because they couldn't find entertainment. They couldn't find that kind of, I want to say intellectual, but it's not just intellectual. It's artistic, aesthetic appreciation in their lives. And not only are artists doing better generally, and art sales are better than they were before, they're finding that they're actually emerging artists are doing better. People are looking for new artists, unknown artists. They're actually starting to do more research, and they're buying this stuff online. Those artists who had a good founding, a good system, a good business online selling art, they report that they did better in 2020 than they did in 2019. That is phenomenal to me. We, however, did not. Because we really weren't plugged in. We really weren't that active on our website, on selling things online. Now, we're doing a lot. We've got a website, both of us. Each of us has a store associated with the website so that we can do e-commerce. We are on other formats, on Etsy, on, now I'm not even going to remember what the others are. Art America, we're on various ones. At this point, I actually can't even think. We're on probably 4 or 5 different platforms to sell things online. And I have to say, we've been there for a couple of years now. And in a couple of years, and I can report from my website, I have made 1 sale ever from my website. And that was to my niece, who, bless her heart, she felt like she had to buy something from Uncle John. So she went on the website because she lives in another city. Bogdan has had 1 sale on his website. And we've got a bunch of stuff on our website, and we are promoting the heck out of ourselves, and it's just not turning into sales. And we need to figure this out, because the folks who were selling online continued to sell online and escalated. We, who really weren't that active, did nothing. Nothing. And still are doing nothing. So we have to find out ways to actually start to market that will turn our websites into money-making enterprises for us. So that if there's inclement weather, if we have another hurricane, if there's, God forbid, another outbreak and closures due to the pandemic, or any other number of things that we could face, that our business is not going to crumble, that we have those other streams of getting income and selling art. Other people are doing it. Another thing that we have been discussing lately, it is possible that the reason that we're not selling is because our art is not good. That is a possibility. We happen to have experience that that's not the case. People are coming into the studio, they're buying from us. Bogdan had a day, he made $4,000 in one day. Sold 4 or 5 pieces to a woman who was sent to the studios by her interior designer. Go find some art that you love. And she fell in love with Bogdan's work and bought it on site. I had somebody come by and buy 7 pieces from me. Now my pieces aren't quite as expensive as Bogdan's. So we know that people are interested in our art. They're out there. And now that I've done the Pancamarga, we actually have some collectors whose taste I really admire and trust, and they're finding our art worth buying. So we have some anecdotal evidence that we're not crap. So there has to be something else going on. Our websites have been redone, and we have spent some time with them. We've actually gone online, and you can go on and search, and I think you search for something like website checker or something like that actually does a little evaluation of your website for SEO and for various other things that are mysterious to me. And we did that, and we did that last night, in fact. And I think Bogdan got a 62 and I got a 61 out of 100, which of course, for any of you who remember your school days, is a failing grade. So the beautiful thing about these website checkers is they will give you a bunch of information that means nothing to me, but probably means something to those people who are more informed. But what it will do is it will give you little hints, things to do to fix these problems. And so I tried various things, and there was one that I tried. I said, okay, this one thing I did, and I hit refresh, and I went from a 61 to a 70. So I was able to make some progress, and I found some other things that I did, and I will be implementing those just by clicking through the things on that internet tester or that website tester. The problem is, of course, each one of those is different. They use different criteria. I think you need to take that with a grain of salt. I mean, this isn't the be-all and end-all any more than, you know, a weight tracker will make you lose weight. I mean, it's just a tool, right? But take it with a grain of salt, but you can get some real insight into what's going on with your web page. So one of the things we're thinking is it could be that our web pages are substandard, or that somehow we're not being picked up, we're not being shown to enough people. And we know that that's true when you look at the algorithms in Facebook and Instagram. And you can be putting out a lot of content, and that doesn't mean anyone's seeing it. That's just the way of the world. And you have to try and guess what those algorithms are that could make a change. The thing that we have to consider too is that, and we've talked about this in an earlier episode, that I think we can get confused quickly about marketing. Many people, myself included, we tend to mix up the terms marketing, advertising, and publicity, and even sometimes sales. Those are different things. Here's how I understand it, and hopefully if I'm wrong, let me know. Marketing is kind of the overarching umbrella under which all of these things reside. So marketing is a lot of things essential to running a business, but you can spend a lot of time marketing and not be doing any advertising. And so I checked out the small SBA, the Small Business Association, and they recommend that for a small business, you should be spending 7 to 8% of your gross earnings on advertising. And I thought, okay. And then I read further that in actuality, most small businesses do 4 to 5% or 3 to 5%. So not everybody's even doing that. But let's just take that number. If we make $50,000 last year, gross, that's before all the bills and all the paint supplies and everything else, and rent and things come out of it. So we didn't do well last year. But $50,000, so 10% would be $5,000 we need to be spending on advertising. Okay, maybe a little less because they're saying 7 to 8%. But for the math, let's say 10%. Okay, so if 10% is $5,000, then 5% would be $2,500 we should be spending just to do 5%, less than the SBA recommends, but still about what everybody else is doing. So I should be spending about $2,500 on advertising. So I went and looked at what we've actually spent, and it's August, so year's not over, but it's getting close. And this year we have spent $250. Now, if I do my math right, that's like less than 1% of what we should be spending. You know, it's like $250. And all of that $250 has been spent buying ads in a local luxury magazine. But it's not the print magazine, it's the e-blast that they send out. So it goes to a lot of people, but I have no idea if anybody actually sees those ads. So yeah, that's the only advertising we've done. So we've got to come up with strategies on how to do advertising. But here's the rub. If, in fact, my website is not being indexed or not being retrieved by search engines and things like that, if no one is seeing my website, there's no amount of advertising I can do that is going to improve the sales on my website. No one's going to see it. So I think one of my real dreams would be that every time I create a new piece of art that I I paint it, I take photographs of it, I get the title, and I put it all in a database, and I get it framed and wired, and then it's ready to sell. And then I have a certain amount of advertising that is associated with this one piece of art, maybe in the first month that I paint it. That would be ideal, but I just don't think we're there yet. I think what we need to do is actually put advertising and put advertising money into boosting the number of visits we get on our websites. And that's easily tracked, right? Because you just look for the difference. You know how many people are normally coming? Not many. And then you see the increase after you do your advertising. So it's a good measurable way to spend advertising money. But without that waste that can happen if I'm throwing money into a hole that will never get people to buy my art. So that's where we are today. We're really looking at building for at least a couple of months, maybe to the end of the year, see if we can actually change the number of people who get to our website. And then we can start advertising to those people to make them buy once they're there. I think that's the best we can do at this point. Now, doesn't help us if the doors close. Doesn't help us if the studios just aren't visited by people, because that right now is the only way we're earning bucks from the art anyway. And I mean, another thing we considered is we don't know yet what we're going to do. Mom and Dad have now passed away. We've got this house of theirs. I pay for a studio, but I have this house across the street. I could sell it, or I could just make this my studio. Maybe I don't need a studio in Houston. But if I don't have a Houston studio, all those people that are coming in from whom I make money, all those people will go away because this is a small town. So I really, really, really need to have good, robust, dependable website sales. And if I have those, then it doesn't matter where I live. We can move to Romania and live on a fraction of what we spend to live here in the United States. So I don't know, we've got a lot of options, but they all center around finding a way to invest hard-earned money into advertising that will actually increase the attendance to our website. Anyway, that's what we've been thinking. Hopefully you're having a great week. Stay creative, and I'll talk to you again next week. I promise.